Hey you guys, and welcome back to my channel. I finally am doing a new sewing tutorial. I'm really excited. This one actually turned out pretty good. I would recommend not making yours as big as the one in my video unless you're making this for like a cat or some kittens, or you have a cat cage, or you're hanging it somewhere like not in a cage, like you're able to hang it, I don't know, under a table or under a desk. Then it would be completely fine. I made mine kind of big, and then after hanging it, I was like, oh wow, this is really big for their cage. So I'm going to put some dimensions in the description for sizes that I think would be better suited for maybe 1 or 2 ferrets, or for the Ferret or Critter Nation cages or something kind of similar. But overall, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and that's it. Let's get started. Okay, so for this video, I'm going to be using a flannel for the outside fabric, and you could use a fleece, blizzard, or anti-pill. I'm using, it's called Sherpa. It's super soft. You can get it at the craft store. It's kind of expensive, but I think I got it on sale. I just really like it. I think it'll be great for the inside of this hammock, but a lot of times you'll see this in hammock in white. But you could totally use fleece and it would be completely fine. You're going to want your clips or pins, something to write with. You're going to need obviously some scissors, your sewing machine, a ruler. I'm going to be using poly strapping and these hooks. I will put links to all of this stuff, and I'll also put it in the description what exactly I'm using and the sizes that I used, or the sizes I measured my fabric to make this hammock. You don't have to use these. You could use grommets. You could use fleece straps. You kind of have a couple options. I'm going to put a link in the video on all the different ways that you can hang a hammock so that you guys can kind of see your other options if you have a pet that chews, or if you just don't want to use these kinds of hanging methods. I'm going to start by cutting out my pieces. I'll put something across the screen now that tells you the sizes while I cut these pieces, and then I'll go over them once I have them all cut out. If you have a directional fabric, just pay attention to how you're cutting this, because you're going to want to make sure you cut it right so that when you put it together, your directions aren't, like, your fabric isn't upside down. What I did was I created a half circle. When we make all this and get it all together, the ferrets are going to enter, or your pets is going to enter through this opening that we're creating now. So what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and cut this out and then clip it. What you need to do now is you're going to go over to your sewing machine. You're going to do this for all of these pieces. You're going to stitch all the way around. You're going to leave an opening about I would say about 3 to 4 inches so that you can flip it inside out. We need to do this to all of these pieces. I normally mark my opening by putting in pins, so I'll know to start sewing like here and sew all the way around and stop here. And then we're going to do that to all of them. Once we do that, you're going to come back. We'll come back over here and I'll show you guys how we're going to close up that opening once we flip it inside out. And then we can assemble the entire hammock. Alright, so now that you've stitched all these together, starting with my front piece, I'm going to just clip the corners a little bit, just in the front, not everywhere else. Okay, so then I'm going to find where I have my hole, which is over here, and I'm going to flip this right side out. So you should have something that looks like this. If you're going to want to poke everything out. Alright, there we go. And then you have this opening that we have to close up. So we're just going to roll it like we always do. Make sure you roll it so the seams are in. You're going to clip it into place. For the other pieces, is you're going to want to flip them inside out or right side out. It doesn't matter if you cut the corners or not, because we're going to stitch all this together, so you're not really going to see any of that. But you do need to make sure that your whole opening is closed that we just made. So I'm just poking out my corners a little bit. Now you'll have this opening. You just want to roll it in and clip it. I'm going to do this with all of these pieces. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go over to my machine and I'm going to top stitch this entire thing. So I'm going to make sure that I close my opening off. I'm going to make sure I hit that with the sewing machine, and then I'm going to top stitch around this. It'll just make it look pretty. I am going to also make sure that I stitch closed the opening, which was here. I can do just one stitch, or I can stitch, you can top stitch the whole thing. It's completely up to you. You don't have to top stitch these other pieces, because once you put this together, you're never going to see that top stitch. So what you should have is, you should have two side pieces. You should have a front and a back piece, and you should have a top and a bottom piece. Now my top piece has just a plain piece of gray fleece on the back, but the rest of it has all of the Sherpa. Okay, so what you should have is all your pieces sewn. I went and I made 4 straps that are adjustable. If you don't know how to make adjustable straps, please see the tutorial above, and I show how to make those. So I made 4 adjustable straps. Now what you need to do is take your side pieces and put them aside. Take your back piece and set it aside. Take your bottom and set it aside. You should have now your top piece. For me, that's the piece that just has plain gray fleece. And I have my front piece. That's the piece with the cutout. So what you want to do is, we're going to start to piece this together. You should take your front piece with the cutout and line it up to your top piece, just like this. Because when we sew this and we're all done, it's going to be like this, so your pets can go inside of it. So we need to put that together now. So lay that out. Line these up. Grab one of your straps, however you're going to do it. We're going to place this so that it is facing, it's on the inside. So we want to put it, I'm putting it in the corner here of my top piece. And I'm just putting, I haven't flipped this over yet. So we're going to do that for each one of these. And you're going to take your front piece and you're going to flip it over so that the right sides are facing together. So you want your outer fabrics right sides together, and you want a strap positioned in the corner. And then you're going to clip it, just the front. Don't clip it on the sides, just clip it on the front, in the front. You're going to do the same thing here. You can even let it hang out a little bit, that way you know you got it. We'll cut off any excess at the end. Alright, I am going to clip it a little bit on the sides, but we're not going to sew the sides. We're only going to sew the front. Just make sure that your hooks are in the corner. Okay, so you should have something that looks like this. And you're going to go over to your sewing machine, and you're just going to stitch across here and across here. Do not stitch the sides. You're only going to be able to catch part of your hammock strap. That's okay. We're getting ready to attach the sides, and we'll get the other strap when we get there. So just, I would back stitch here, and I would just go all the way to here and then go back. I would maybe just stitch it twice. So you're going to stitch, you're stitching this in place, and you're stitching your strapping in place on the front. All right, so I am just putting this, and I am going to do a 1/2 inch seam because I feel like that's probably safest. So we're just going to come down. My machine back tacks automatically, so it's going to kind of automatically put that stitch in, whether that safety stitch, like secure stitch, so I don't have to back stitch because it kind of does it. And I'm just going to back tack here. I'm going to go down to my next section. Back tack is basically back stitch. For those of you who don't know, I had to learn all kinds of stuff that I didn't know before. All right. So now that you've stitched that, you should have something that looks like this. Now you're going to want to grab one of your side pieces. And you're going to do the same thing that you just did, except you're going to do it with the side. So we're going to lay our side out like this. You want to grab another strap. You want it to be facing, and you want it in the corner, just like you just had your last one. Just clip that there for a second. Now take your side piece. You want right sides facing together. Remember, if you have a pattern piece, please be careful. Make sure you put your patterns so that when you're done, they're facing the right direction. I made a bed using this fabric not too long ago. Made a whole tutorial and put the bed upside down. So, don't do like me. Pay attention. Sometimes I get a little carried away. So we're just going to clip this in place. We're going to go over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch just the side. So we're going to stitch from here down, back stitch on each corner. You're going to do that to the other side piece as well. All right, so you're going to go over to, so here's just, I want to make sure that I'm making this so clear. So these are your sides, and you're going to stitch down each side. When you're done, it's going to look like this. All right, just to show you guys, because I want to grab this. So we're just going to lay this down like this. You see, just like that. So, and you're going to, you might have to take out a clip to do this. Depends on your machine. I'm going to probably end up back stitching to make sure that I grab that piece. But you just want to make sure you grab that strapping and that it's in place the way it should be. All right, there we go. Okay, so you should have something that looks like this now. Now you need to attach your back piece. Got my back piece. We're going to flip it around so you guys can see it. So my back piece should look like this. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to flip it up so the right sides are facing together. We are going to clip it to the back here. Make sure that your straps are in and that you're catching them. We're going to do the same thing. You're sure you can probably see where we're going with this at this point. But so we're going to stitch this in place now. Okay, so now you should have your sides and your top together. Take your front piece and connect it to the side next to it. So you want right sides together. So grab the corner of one side and the corner of the corresponding front piece, and go like this. And clip these in place or pin them, whatever you gotta do. We're gonna stitch these. Now take your other front piece, match it up to the other corresponding side, clip it. Okay, so this is your front. You're gonna do the same thing to your back. So grab your side piece, match it up to the back of your back piece on the corners, clip it in place, and do your last back corner. So match these up. All right, so now you should have something that looks like it's gonna kind of look like a basket, except it's not gonna have any. Looks like this. So take it over to your sewing machine and you are going to stitch all the way up from the bottom to the top, or from the top to the bottom. Either way, you're connecting your side pieces. You're going to do that to all four sides. Now, once you've sewn that, you should have kind of like a box. But if you were to turn it right side out, it would look like this. I just want to show you guys so that if you're following along, you know you did it right. It'll look like kind of like this in the front, and then your sides. This will be your top. So flip it back so that it's inside out. And we need to attach our bottom. You want the right sides of your outside piece facing the right sides of your basket, or when it's a hammock. You're just going to go ahead and clip all the way around so that these right sides are matching up. Alright, so now that you have your bottom pinned, it'll look like this is it's upside down. But you should have your bottom pinned on. You're going to go to your sewing machine and you're going to stitch all the way around. I recommend doing like a 1/2 inch seam. If you're doing regular fleecing and you think that a 1/4 inch seam is enough, that's completely fine. For me, with this thick Sherpa, to make sure I catch everything, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch seam. Alright, so I'm going to attach my bottom. I just want to make sure you don't accidentally stitch any of the wrong pieces. You just want to stitch around the edges, okay? So just make sure you're not bunched up and accidentally stitching the wrong part of your hammock when you're doing this. So you should have your bottom completely attached now. I'm just going around and cutting off any strings that I see. You want to make sure that everything is stitched. There's no openings. Then find your front and flip this bad boy right side out. Now this is huge. If you want this to be smaller, which you probably will, this is gigantic. Just make it a little smaller when you do your measurements. In fact, the measurements I put in the description I might make a little smaller because I know this is big. So if you have a smaller cage or you don't want to take up all your cage space, you're not going to want one this big. I am going to stretch this out and pull it taut in the cage so that it holds its shape. But basically, it's going to look like this, which is going to be really hard for you guys to see because I have a really hard time holding up these kinds of things on my own. So I'm going to go put it in a cage and show it to you that way because I think it'll be best. But this is the completed project. Just cut off any excess strings and you're good to go. Hey, Pumpkin. Look, Boo. Hi, Boo.